The following is an Operation Podcast production.
So I think that we have to switch our perspective, and instead of, my God, it's so stressed, I don't have any time, I'm so overwhelmed, right? Create a structure within your life to invite more ease and more freedom. And it might take some getting used to. And, using your day timer every day might feel like more work in the beginning, but it will feel like less work and freedom in the end.
Tryna find love, know it's hard to keep. Even when it get tough and you wanna leave. Take a look into your eyes where I find reason. Yeah.
Hey everyone, Mona Sharma here, holistic nutritionist and wellness educator. I'm so thrilled to share this episode with you on Live Through Love, where today we really dove into the power of self-love and self-care and how you can create the environment for your body to heal, for your mind to restore, and so that you can actually go out and create a life of meaning and purpose through optimal health.
Thank you for coming in today and joining us.
So excited to be here.
I'm excited to learn more about you, have you share your wisdom. And, you're into nutrition, and I think food, and a pillar of Live Through Love is fitness. Like, I've been into fitness my whole life.
Yeah.
I've studied it. I was going to be an orthopedic surgeon at some point.
Wow.
Obviously, it took a turn.
I thought I was going to be an art history teacher, so here we are.
There you go, yeah. But the human body and the power of love and how we fuel ourselves, like, I really want us to be able to tell the audience, like, how it's so important to watch what we put inside of ourselves just as much as our thoughts and what we're doing and what we're putting ourselves and who we're hanging out with. I think it's all super important. So tell us a little bit about you first and how you got into this work.
Yeah, my journey really is one that just keeps going. But, I think it really dictated who and where I am today. So over a decade ago, I was working in the corporate world. I was working as head of education for a handful of luxury cosmetic companies. So on paper, I had this awesome job, dream job, traveling the world, doing makeup for fashion shows, teaching people about makeup and all the things. But ultimately, it was a sales job, right? I was waking up in hotel rooms, not knowing what city I was in, experiencing burnout, lack of purpose, wondering what I was doing, and no great role models necessarily. A lot of people were either overweight, divorced, or sick. So me suffering with anxiety that kept accumulating. I was told at one point that I was going to have a hard time having children. My stress was so high that I stopped getting my menstrual cycle. This is all after having 2 heart surgeries for debilitating heart palpitations that I was having. Medication caused me to gain weight and everything. So it was during my second heart surgery, which I was awake for, looking at my heart on a massive screen, wires going everywhere, the doctors pumping me full of adrenaline, different meds to induce these palpitations that I knew would only happen if I was standing up or moving around. He said, all right, Mona, we found where we're going to do the ablation, but if we go through with it, you might have to wear a pacemaker for the rest of your life.
Whoa.
And in that moment, I was like, no, like a pacemaker? That's not who I am. This is not my journey. This is not my purpose. So like rock hard moment. And the irony of all of this is that I grew up living on an ashram. So my father's Indian, my mom is Danish, and I've only ever known my mom to suffer from debilitating rheumatoid arthritis. So her whole body's deformed. And with my dad's insight on Ayurveda and yoga and meditation, he would take us to live at this ashram every summer. But I guess like as a little kid, your dad tapping you on the shoulder to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning and eat twice a day was like not so fun, but it was imprinting, right? So in that moment, I knew that I had to go back to my roots. It was time for me to heal, time for me to listen to my heart and go back to what really mattered to me. And that's exactly what I did. I threw in the towel in the corporate world. I went back to the ashram. I became a yoga teacher, a meditation teacher, and then a nutritionist, actually not thinking that it was going to become a career for me. But funny, you opened speaking about fitness. It was my older brother. So my older brother's 10 years older. He's always been the marathon runner, tri-adventure, this, like done all of it. And one year he asked me, and this was just around the time after my heart surgery, he said, you should come do this one with me. But I'd spent years identifying as somebody who was sick, somebody with a heart condition, that I was like, no, I can't, my heart. And he didn't say these words exactly, but ultimately it was like, well, how's that working for you? And I thought, oh, okay, it's not working for me, clearly.
Yeah.
So that was the year I hired somebody to teach me how to run properly. I really dialed in on everything that I learned about nutrition. And I did this tri-adventure race with my brother, and we finished together. Yeah. So it was like running, canoeing, and riding my bike for a really long time. So fitness was a big instigation for that shift. Yeah.
The power of our physical being and be able to move through that. And look, your heart can handle it.
My heart is great, right? And, the things that people don't know, I just think, and even today more than ever, our medical system is broken, right? We visit our doctors, they tell us what's wrong, they prescribe something to take away the pain or the symptom, which is exactly what my doctors were doing. They didn't want me to suffer with palpitations. Here's a prescription. They found a solution. Well, you can wear a pacemaker. We might be able to do the surgery. Here's a solution, right? Not one doctor, right, had asked me about my nutrition, the stressors in my life, my sense of purpose, what was happening, my vitamin and mineral deficiencies, my hormone imbalance, my cortisol levels being completely, the fact that I wasn't getting my periods, like they weren't connecting the dots with all of these things when ultimately my parents were getting divorced. I was suffering from a broken heart. I was going through a major breakup. I was living a life out of purpose. I was unfulfilled. I was scared. I was unhappy. I was experiencing the byproduct of the medication, which is making me feel lethargic and like loss of energy, right? So, me going back to my roots at the ashram, it's not the ashram that healed me. It was the rituals at the ashram that healed me. It was the focusing on my body, listening to my thoughts, living in nature, being with community, understanding that I could actually use my body to control my mind and my mind to control my body to heal, right? And it was, I'll never forget sitting at the ashram after becoming a meditation teacher and just like, oh, this journey really is about tuning in, right? My heart was actually broken. I was turning off, listening to this divine spirit of myself that was within me. And I was trying to live like other people, trying to do what my parents thought was going to be a good idea, what society was, how I could make the most money, grow the corporate ladder really, really fast. And the funny part about that is that it wasn't until I became a yoga teacher that my dad said, I'm so proud of you, right? It wasn't the 6-figure income.
Wow, there's so much right there. Like,
yeah.
So many of us can relate to that. I can relate to a lot of that when I was in the corporate world, in finance, depressed, not wanting to get out of bed. Yeah. Mostly because I wasn't living in purpose and I wasn't being authentic to who I'm supposed to be, which I am more now than ever.
Yeah.
But I want to go back toward the beginning. The second surgery, open heart surgery, you're awake, the doctor's talking to you, you're looking at this.
Yeah. Okay. So I should have clarified. It wasn't open heart surgery the way that they went. They stuck these wires through your groin and stuck wires in through your neck, through the veins around your heart. But you're awake for the whole thing. So you have to tell them when you feel these palpitations happening so that they can go and scan the heart to see what's being triggered. Okay. Nonetheless, though, you're looking at your heart with these wires coming in everywhere, being pumped full of different drugs, right? And, the doctor once asked me during the surgery, he's like, Mona, why are you crying? I'm like, I don't know. We've been here for a couple of hours and I'm being pumped full of medicine. You're telling me that I might have to wear a pacemaker? I don't know.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So our medical system, there needs to be an evolution. And I think that it's slowly happening. I think that we are asking more questions in terms of healing. We're kind of losing faith in the prescription model. And we now know that doctors actually don't take part in any nutrition classes. Right? It's at the bottom of the barrel that might get a couple of hours, right? And we now know that food is information. Everything that we put into our body is information for every single cell, right? And I always say to my clients, everything that you consume is either going to fuel you and your health and your happiness and your vitality and your longevity, or it's going to deplete you. So it's now bringing this different why for, well, why do you want to get healthy? You know, a lot of people will hire me to get a six pack, but ultimately they stay with me for how they feel. It's like, oh gosh, you got me centered again. I feel really good when I wake up in the morning. And what that does, as you experienced, you change the state of your body. Your body can heal itself, right? When I went into the ashram, my vibration was low. It was stress, worry, anxiety, tension, fear. When I left the ashram, my vibration was living in happiness and joy and peace of mind and self-love, right? The love for ourselves. Why aren't we ever taught to love ourselves?
Right. You turn on the TV, we're taught all the ways we don't love ourselves, but that's because they're trying to sell us something.
What's wrong with you? Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it's scary, especially for our kids, right? They look at all these signs and billboards everywhere on look like this person, lose more weight, change your nose, change your boobs, change your thighs, instead of just owning like, God, I love myself exactly the way that I am.
Right. Or saying, eat this, feel better, think better, look better. No, it's like there's a McDonald's ads and there's like, get some boobs.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it goes back to that pharma thing. Like the people who spend the textbooks, the money on the textbooks for the doctors are big pharma, right? It's important that we stay sick.
Yeah, because I remember studying nutrition in school and drug and alcohol stuff. And one semester of a class was split between drug and alcohol and nutrition, unless you go like full on nutrition degree. But even then, I remember what I learned back then and what is known now was still so off base, didn't really make any sense. The food pyramid, obviously we know who makes that up.
And it's funny you say that too, right? Like even look at today, living in Los Angeles, okay? We live in this era of hyper wellness, you know, diets, fads, everywhere. Try that. This is the best way. These foods are the best way. And a lot of them have really healthy foods behind them, right? But it still always goes back to a diet, a fad, a new product, a new person's program. And at the ashram, what I really love and admire about Ayurveda is it's about honoring your own personal constitution. So when I work with my clients, they know that I will not put them on a diet unless, you know, if they're an athlete or an actor that has to train for a role or look a certain way. I'll say to them, like, your perfect diet should be as unique as your thumbprint. So why are you looking to see what they're doing, right? Oh, that paleo and that keto diet, did you know that all those studies were actually performed on men? Right? Are you aware of that? And so from this perspective, I really love this kind of ancient ritual model, but also taking advantage of all the science that we have access to today, right? So when I work with my clients, I'll also want to understand their biology. I'll send them for their blood labs, for a saliva test, for a stool test to see what's happening inside, so that when they decide to take a supplement, when we're choosing what foods are necessary, we can actually work to heal any imbalances that are actually happening for you, not for somebody else.
Yeah.
And that's ownership, right? That's really taking control of your health.
It is. And sometimes what I'm hearing you say is, and when I talk to people, I'm like, we're each our own unique chemistry experiments.
Yeah.
So what works for me, like, I'm fine. As far as I know, you could probably poke a hole in, but I'm fine on dairy. I've done 30 days and six months with no dairy and then started introducing dairy again. I didn't put on a ton of weight or get overly inflamed or have any issues.
Yeah.
Where other people just look at dairy and they freak out. So like it all depends on, everyone thinks, oh, I have to be gluten-free and I'm going to be okay. Or I have to be this or I'm going to be okay. Or
oh my gosh. Yeah. And the dairy thing too, right? Like I'm half Indian, half Danish, both high diets and dairy, right? But I think that when we consider these things to remove, or what's coined today as like the inflammatory foods, is your body in a state of inflammation? Is that a concern of yours, right? Because, you know, if we're eating a healthy diet, back in the day, we would have been eating seasonally. We would have been eating foods on rotation. We wouldn't be consuming the same things over and over. And yet here we are today. We go to the grocery store every single week. We're buying the exact same foods over and over and over and over, right? Which means that we're only taking in a limited spectrum of vitamins and nutrients and phytochemicals from the same foods. A lot of those are genetically modified because we now get watermelon in the dead of winter, right? Which it's a summer food. So with that said, I think it's just the awareness of, you know, I've done my blood labs. My digestion's great. There's no inflammatory markers that are spiked. My hormones are fine. My sleep is fine. My energy is fine. So me consuming these foods is actually all right for my constitution right now. And that might shift, and I might take a break from dairy. But yeah, as long as it's a reputable source and it's okay for you and your constitution, then you own that. Do what's good for you.
So define how you're using constitution for people.
Yeah. What's funny is that when I hop on my first call with my clients, everyone is like just waiting. Mona, just tell me what to eat. What's the diet? Tell me what to eat. What do I do? What do I do? What do I do? But we typically end the call with a lot of tears and a lot of emotions because this, especially with the work that you've done. Everybody knows what a healthy plate of food looks like versus an unhealthy plate of food. I can tell you what to eat. You already know this though, right? The challenge or the problems that arise is why aren't you choosing the healthy plate of food? Yes. Why are you choosing to go to the drive-thru? Why are you choosing to grab the bag of chips with the ingredients that you don't even understand and you're thinking like, it's fine, I'll deal with it later, right? And that all goes back to mindset. And it looks very different for each and every one of us, whether food was a coping mechanism when we were younger, whether it has to do with the cultural values that were around it, being Indian, like we ate when we were happy, when we were sad, when we were celebrating, when we were taking part of religious traditions, like it was just always part of our lives. And, I just had this conversation yesterday with a woman. She's like, she was so convinced that everything she ate was going to make her either fat or bloated. It's like, is that true? You who's maybe 110 pounds soaking wet, right? But it was something that was ingrained so deep within her psychology that Shiv had to go back to like really looking at that inner child stuff. This is actually why I became an NLP practitioner, so neuro-linguistic programming. So you can understand like what are your limiting beliefs? What is your belief system about yourself? Why aren't you making the decisions to change? And I think maybe for myself, an opportunity was the struggle, was the hitting the rock bottom, was the fear that came in the room during that surgery, because fear is a big impetus for change. It keeps us committed and motivated to change,
motivator,
right? But for people who haven't necessarily had that fear, they're constantly looking for motivation through fads and diets and, ads and celebrity and whatever it is, which isn't the right motivation. So to your point, honoring your constitution means, if it's hard for you to commit to an eating program that makes you feel good, where you're second guessing like, I shouldn't eat that. Oh, that's bad food. That's good food. That's bad food. If you're questioning those things, and there's some deeper inner work that you should do first before you tackle what foods you should be eating.
I love that. That's what it comes down to. So going through school, I was personal training, and then I started doing nutrition coaching. And what I found, there was a couple ways that I would onboard someone. I would say, write down what you ate for 2 weeks. And until you finish that, don't come back to me. 9 out of 10 of them would never finish it. So, okay, I'm sorry. Like, we already know they're not going to be committed. Then if you do it, you start talking through like, well, why are you eating this? What's happening here? And walking through those processes and realizing like, okay, now can you get me to 7 perfect days? And then from 7 days, go have a free day. How do you feel? So I was always working with how are you physically feeling and mentally feeling versus what you were going to look like. Because as you know, we need to give ourselves at least 90 days to really see something. But we want that quick fix. We want the S curve. We want how are you helping people walk through that, let's say the 90-day window, or if you have a different kind of window, to really get them going through that and work through the mind shifts?
Ultimately, I think it comes down to that point of understanding your biology, okay? Because even within those 90 days, a lot of people that I work with will make it through the 30, the 60, or the 90 days. And what do? They go back. Oh, I'm done. Great. I can go back and binge, right?
Thank you. I'm done.
Thank you, I'm done, right? Or for a lot of men or women, especially, who have suffered from eating disorders, or like they put food into that good and the bad category, when I love food. I love the taste of food from different cultures. I love how eating some foods will make me feel. Since I was a kid, my mom will say like she loved watching me eat because I would just like stop talking. I was really enjoying something. And I think that food is also a love language, right? So I think this idea of eating healthy can really play true and feel a lot easier when you understand what's happening physiologically, right? Yeah. Are you living a life out of alignment? Are you living a life that is too high in stress, which most of us are, right? Like if I ask a room full of people if they're experiencing high levels of stress, every hand will go up, right? This impacts our physiology. This impacts how we digest. This impacts our decisions on what foods to eat. So instead, doesn't it feel a lot more like freedom if we just understand that food is information? The majority of your plate should come from foods that come from the earth, that are natural with 0 ingredient labels, right? You know, really focus on having a balance of good quality protein, good quality fats, good quality carbohydrates, again, that come from the earth, eating the rainbow, as we always say. But also like enjoy the foods that you really want to enjoy, but just be smart about it. Like part of my struggle is the food system, right? Like the food system is making it way too easy for us to get fat, to suffer from cardiovascular disorders, metabolic disorders, mood disorders. And we're eating a lot of these foods where if we look at the ingredient label, like we don't even know what it means.
You need a decoder.
You need a decoder. If you don't know what it is, then neither will your body, right? But that's when food addiction comes into play. Are you having and reaching for those foods because you're actually addicted to it? They release chemicals, right? Molecules within our physiology to make us addicted. Food scientists are hired by big food companies to keep us addicted to those foods. So the spin that I like to play with my clients is, and so many great functional medicine doctors speak to this all the time, but we can really only shift the future of our food if we are using our dollar. If we are paying money for the Coca-Colas and the Doritos and the chips and the candy bars and all of these foods, we're just fueling their pockets to create more of the foods, right? Or for the kids. My gosh, don't even get me started on kids' foods,
I can go on a whole, I think we'll go right back to that. I think childhood obesity, parents, and this is probably extreme, but they should be locked up. Because a kid doesn't know what's happening. Is like, here's the food, the kid eats it. Like I feed my son, like we're in control of what he's eating.
Absolutely.
I think that's child abuse.
Yeah. But Ruben, like now having worked over the past 10 years, I could definitely say like a dozen people have reached out where I've talked to them about the foods, talked to them about what to eat. And they'll say, but Mona, there isn't a grocery store nearby. They only have access to those foods. And what are we feeding our kids through our school program, right? My kid last year was through the LAUSD school program, and every day he would come home with, something processed, a coffee cake, a bag of Doritos. Maybe there was apple slices or a carrot stick, right? High sugar juice, muffins, and stuff like that. And it's like, but we're feeding it to them, right? The schools are paid a shitload of money to pay for these brands, right? So, and
the juice is sugar water. It's not even 5% juice if you're lucky.
Yeah. So here's the thing. I don't think that we're going to get around the big system, but we can definitely have more control, right? And if you want to take ownership, the inspiration might not be for how you look and feel right now, but how do you want to live when you're 80, 90, and 100, right? Yeah. We are living longer. We're not living well longer. We are filling up our nursing homes. We are on more medication than ever. And I want to be 100 and running around with my grandkids. I want to be hiking Runyon Canyon with my grandkids, right? So we have to understand that the impact of all of our decisions and what we're digesting today will impact how we live and feel and operate in the future. And that includes mental health more than anything else, right? And I think that this conversation around food, and gosh, as a nutritionist, I'm even confused some days, right? There's so much information out there. We got to go back to basics. We have to turn down the noise and all the distractions that are happening and really understand that if I know that this is inherently, don't have to ask any questions, don't have to see a nutritionist to understand that this is good or bad for me, you know the answer. Choose the foods that are good for you. Enjoy the foods that you really, really, really love in moderation. When you decrease the inflammation to your body through other lifestyle measures, proper sleep, right? Meditation, relaxation, time in nature, time with loved ones, time with self-reflection, right? You naturally, those are all free. You take down the inflammation to your body, right? So your body, when you go to eat those foods, can handle it. It's not going to fuel the toxic burden and the toxic load. Your liver will say, "Oh, all right, we can digest this today. We can make it through this, but give me a break tomorrow," right? So it just takes a completely different approach. And gosh, for anyone who hasn't had the opportunity to, even understand what Ayurveda is or Ashram life, like just look into it. Look into what all of our cultures globally, what they used to eat, right? I know often I'll look at what my clients' genetic constitutions are, right? Well, what did your ancestors eat? Chances are if you went back to eating those foods, you'd probably feel really good, right?
No. Food is such a thing. It's the ultimate drug. First off, I love everything you're saying. My wife listens to all these podcasts on all these things. Like we're eating grass-fed beef and as much organic and everything. She does all the groceries because if it's up to me, I'm like, that's the most expensive stuff. But that's, besides the point. It's like, she's like, what's more expensive? You being sick 50 years from now or you buying the grass-fed beef now? Yeah. I'm being sick 50 years from now because what you were saying is I want to play with my grandkids. That's part of one of the pillars of my fitness. The six-pack is a byproduct.
Yeah.
It's a happy accident. I love it. It's great, but that's not why I do it. If that's why I did it, there'd be unhealthier ways for me to do what I did. But I also want to live to 125. And when I was in finance, we are living older. We are living longer, and long-term care costs, and the system isn't built for us. Absolutely. It's really expensive. And if you don't have $10 million for your health journey, once you hit retirement, it's going to be really bad.
Take advantage now. And I really hope that message lands with your viewers today. It wasn't the diet that helped me lose 45 pounds.
Yeah.
It wasn't the living on the ashram that helped me lose the 45 pounds and get off medication and heal my heart. It was the ultimate act of self-love and making the decisions that were going to fuel my health, fuel my happiness, fuel my sense of purpose, honoring my constitution, turning down the noise on what I thought I should be doing and listening to what my heart actually wanted me to do. And like you said, the weight loss was a byproduct. My mental health and happiness was a byproduct. Another time that was introduced into my life was when I got pregnant. So I miscarried twins the first time that I got pregnant, which was like fucking awful.
Can't imagine.
Something else that, a lot of doctors will say, oh, it's so common, right? It's so common. It's normal. Just get over it. It's not, right? It's not, it might be common, but it's not normal. So when I got pregnant with my son, it was another opportunity. I was so terrified of miscarrying again that I remembered everything from the ashram. What do I need to be doing that I've let off the hook? I need to sit in stillness every day. I need to practice gratitude for my body. This heart that has beat for me since before I even arrived in this planet, right? Or in this earth. And just turn things around. And it was when I was 34 years old that I can say that I actually learned to love myself because I had to in order to not have a miscarriage. Like, isn't that screwed up? Totally screwed up. But that's exactly what happened. And I think a lot of women will just they'll ask themselves, what is wrong with me? Why isn't this working for me? Why am I not losing weight? Why don't I feel good? And often it's because it's comparison or it's advice that's coming from a doctor who doesn't know about functional medicine, or it's coming from a male doctor, which I hate to say, but a lot of us women are taking advice from men who will never understand. We love you, men. We love you, but you will never understand our physiology.
I don't understand male OBGYNs. You don't have the gear. You're not how in my head, I can't I would never go study that as medicine. I'm not a woman, and the woman is more complicated than anything. I think you guys are superheroes. And I always say this, and kudos to you, my wife, and everyone else. If reproduction was left up to me as a man, we'd be extinct.
Yeah.
I can't do it. Right. And the stresses that you're talking about, I remember my wife going through pregnancy and she put so much weight and stress on herself. If anything is wrong with my baby, this is on me. Right. Yeah. She didn't think, oh, Ruben, you played a role with some of your genetic. No, it was her. I'm the oven. I'm the cook. I'm carrying this. I'm delivering this. And it was just the stress. Pregnancy was a delight. She didn't have any issues, but that mental conversation was huge for her. And I didn't know how to deal with that. I obviously don't have the tools.
Yeah.
or the physical tools to relate to it. Obviously, I could hold space and support, but that conversation is huge.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. With all this like birth control controversy that's coming out now, my husband said to me the other day, he's like, you'd really trust men to be on a birth control? You trust men to take a pill every day? And I'm like, noted. Okay, good point. But the point is of that, and even with your wife going through that experience, which most women do, what if the lesson didn't have to come with getting pregnant? What if that was part of what we teach our daughters, our women, our boys even, right? This profound respect that you are a walking, talking miracle. You have an ecosystem of bugs and bacteria and parasites and everything within you. You have an ecosystem that's living within you.
So fascinating.
Right? So can we not honor that and help them make more educated choices around self-love? And, oh, my son knows it's not good food, bad food. It's, oh, mommy, when I eat that, I'm going to have more energy. When I eat that, it's going to taste pretty freaking good, but my belly's going to hurt after. Right?
I love that.
So it's really shifting that because I'm really cautious, especially for my daughter. This like, oh no, that's bad. That's good. That's bad. It's just understanding, no. Which one's going to bring you more self-love? Which one is made for your body? This one vessel, the only vessel that you will get in this lifetime. What's going to make you feel better long-term? And how to take ownership in those decisions versus not. Then the work gets a lot easier as we get older, right?
Well, I'm going through this with my son now. Like my wife mostly feeds him all the time, but he loves his berries. He loves all his good food. We don't give him juice. Every once in a while, he's like at a birthday party and he'll have juice and some cake. Yeah, and it's not because we're deprived. We don't want to deprive anything because they're going to go find it elsewhere. But how does this, I love the question. How do you feel right now? How's this food making you feel? I'm going to have to start asking him those questions.
Yeah. And sorry to get graphic. I talk about poop every day.
That's fine.
But like, you know, help them understand their bowel movements. When their bowel movement isn't like this S shape that's like easy for them to wipe, what does it look like? What does it feel like, right? Is it too watery? Do they have a stomach ache? Then they understand that it's the food that might not serve them, the Doritos or the cake that came at the birthday party, that doesn't make them feel good. So that they're mentally registering as a child, like, oh yeah, that doesn't serve my physiology. I'm going to go for this. Or at our house, what we do every single night is, and this is something my mom did, every single night, no matter what, she would have a salad on the table just to show us some red, some orange, some purple, some green, so that I would always see it on my plate. And that's what allowed me to go full circle. So I'm doing the same thing with my kids. They might not always eat it, right? My kids are seeing the world of white bread, white rice, white pasta, white everything. But they know that it has to be part of their plate.
Yeah, no, I'm going to definitely use some of those tricks and tools and definitely going to reach out in the future.
Yeah, but it's imprinting, right? Like look at the story that I went through with the ashram, the meditation that my dad was doing, right? I would see him meditate every day before work. And he was part of the generation that was just like corporate mindset, survive, make it to the top, come hell or high water, right? Back then, like there's no men's groups, there's no coping mechanisms for men. It's just like what he had to do, but he would meditate every day. I saw that. I would see my mom putting the eat the rainbow idea of food on the plate every night. I would see my parents' physiology shift when we lived at the ashram. They felt more at peace and more playful, and it would change their state of mind and being, right? So I think that we can really imprint on our children, and it takes some effort because it's hard, right? Like we're busy. We're busier than we've ever been. We are more stressed than we've ever been. We are exposed to more pollution and toxins than there have ever been in history.
And less nutritious food.
Less nutritious food. My gosh, I'm working with a handful of vegans right now who have high heavy metals because they're eating food from, not the safest soils in the world, right? So, just really, taking stock in what we can do to imprint on our children, I think is really important. And then if you're an adult who's really wanting to make some changes, if you need some why or some purpose behind it, get your blood labs done. Find a doctor who's going to be your partner in healing, right? Not somebody who's going to dictate and not spend an extra 5, 10, 20 minutes with you understanding your lifestyle right now. Your doctor should be your partner in health.
That's why I don't have a go-to doctor right now.
Same.
I remember in high school, I think 17 or something, I got a physical. And height and weight, I was 185 in high school. Lean, like not overweight. I'm an athlete, played 3 sports. BMI is high, obviously, because the BMI scale, that's a whole nother thing we're not even going to go into, but like I'm overweight or obese on that thing.
Yeah, totally.
But he's like, you need to lose some weight. The BMI says you're fat. I'm like, and I look at him like, you have a giant pot belly, a double chin. You don't look healthy and you're telling me I'm fat?
Yeah.
No wonder I have body dysmorphia and things that I deal with on my own about today I feel fat. Or I'm puffy, or I'm this. Like I deal with all those things. So it's like, it does go back to that. Mm-hmm. And with my kid now having a child now, and more of this work, there's always like, be the example, take responsibility, be how you want the world to see it. But now I have to really be it because he's taking me in. Yeah. So for me to teach self-love, I can't tell him how to love himself. I can show him by loving myself. Yeah. So like that's now how I'm practicing even better. Mm-hmm. But as far as meditation, I feel like meditation's gotten so popular lately. I don't have a meditation practice. You know, people ask me all the time, do you have one? I'm sure there's parts of like, what is my kind of meditation? But I don't have like, I sit there and I do the thing. What are some tips to like help me, who's always busy? Like, I know everyone could find 5 minutes, but we're all busy. Yeah. But it's also like, my mind just wanders when I really try to do it. I feel like the gym is my meditation, but.
So I see where you're coming from. And I will say there are so many ways that you can meditate, practice breath work, visualization, all these things that we know about mindfulness today. And they do all work, right? But is there an area of opportunity that will allow your constitution to thrive that maybe if you dabbled a little bit more into that, right? So meditation is a big one. And going to, even India, my gosh, like yoga in India is meditation and breath work first, followed by asana, the poses, right? Warrior and stuff like that. And so growing up, my introduction to yoga was through breath work and meditation. And when you can, and what you said, like the 5 minutes, my mind is busy, that's exactly why you need to meditate. Yes. Because it's experiencing just these tiny little gaps. And you could sit for a 30-minute meditation practice and experience just one gap of stillness. You're like, oh, the thoughts, they stopped. My gosh, that was like pure bliss. That one little gap will benefit you that day. It's like a bank that you can really fuel and store, right? So how do we get this done? So let's start with meditation. So meditation can come through guided meditation. What I do every morning, and honestly, because like my kids are up at 5:30 sometimes, right? I can't get that 30-minute magic morning all the time. But my morning ritual comes, I open my eyes. I know it's time to get up. I will stop, one hand over my heart, one hand over my abdomen, and just take 5 deep breaths, acknowledging my heart for beating, acknowledging my body, thanking my body for doing all the cleanup and the repair while I've slept that night. And even the act of breathing through meditation changes your physiology. So a lot of people will wake up and it's like instantly stressed. Oh my God, what do I have to do? Let's reach for the caffeine. Let's caffeinate. If you were to switch your state, tap into your parasympathetic, the rest and digest, where you approach your day with a little bit more ease and a little bit more grace, that calmness, you carry that forward. And we've all experienced the living in fight or flight, that stress. We forget people's names. We forget our keys. We forget what we have to do. We're short-sighted or short-minded. Short-tempered. But if we are sitting in calm, it's like, oh yeah, I got this. I can remember the things. I want to treat myself a little bit better. Our energy pays off. You know the person that's relaxed or stressed when they walk into a room, right? So I would say figure it out. Like more than diet, figure out those moments of stillness within your day, because remember, through your mind, you can create the environment for healing to take place. That's exactly what the ashram does. It creates the environment for healing to take place. Do that through your house. I'll always say to people, build an altar. Build an altar at your house. That's like your visual cue to the act of exhaling. Great. You just meditated for 30 seconds. You shifted your state. But with those cues, you know, my kids know that our altar is mine. They can't touch it. They can be part of it. We might light some sage or some Palo Santo. I'll say a little mantra with them, and then they'll join me and do it and carry it on to their day. And then just notice mommy's behavior when I start my day like that versus the getting up, we're late. Hurry up, pack your stuff, stop doing that. Yeah, we don't want to start that day.
Yeah.
So if you want to create the environment for your body to shift, like I really believe that we're meant to live in a society where we feel more peace. I think that we've screwed it up massively. I think that stress can be good for us. It's a great driver and motivator for change. We're physiologically meant to drive and produce and have creativity based on these stress instigators, right? We figure things out and that helps us evolve. But we have now turned society into living with chronic daily stress, which for most people, that is the instigator for imbalance and dis-ease to take place. So to take that full circle to meditation, if you're the type of person that says, yeah, I just can't do it, this is not for me, my mind is racing, that's exactly why you should. Start off with a 2-minute guided meditation practice, or better yet, simply just sit and find your breath. Change your state through your breath. Inhale, exhale through your mouth. Which that exhale just elicits peace. I hope everyone just took a breath.
For a moment.
For a moment, yeah.
And you're hearing that, and I love it's reinforcing that, because I go through, there's 2 powerful meditation times in my life that I really remember. I had an opportunity, this guy was in from South America somewhere. He's a transcendental meditation coach. And it was like, I'm not like, I don't go places. Let's do that. We sat down 45 minutes. And I'm a guy like, I train all the time. So sitting Indian style for 45 minutes, it's not comfortable after a while. And that's also another thing, right? I need to work on my flexibility, mobility. I could touch my toes, but mobility is still another thing. But anyway, I was gone. 30 minutes, 40 minutes. I saw a pink triangle. And what he was saying is like, you're connecting to the other being. Like, they got real deep into it.
Right.
But in my sense, I'm like, wow, the power of where this is and where I can go. And maybe I don't need to lose myself on a TV show. Let me go lose myself to breath in my imagination and where that can go.
Ultimately, it's the cheapest form of medicine, right? Like, you changed your state with what most people today are addicted to, drugs, right? Or prescription drugs even.
The opioid crisis is
out of this world, right? And at the ashram, by the way, like, we practice walking meditation. Get outside and walk. Our connection to nature is everything. When we are disconnected from nature, that invites stress. It's why in Japan, there's tons of studies around forest bathing, right? So if you want to dabble, set an alarm on your phone, and whether it's after lunch, just go out for a walk, look at the sky. Look up instead of looking down. Just take 3 or 4 deep breaths. Congratulations, you've just meditated, right? And over time, practice with consistency. I'm big on not habits, but creating rituals in your life.
Yeah.
When they happen at the same time every day, like, make the rituals become you. So you're not looking at your healing and your wellness like a to-do list, a checklist. A lot of the athletes that I work with, or the celebrities that I work with, they're treating wellness like, check, meditated, check, worked out, check, breath work, check. It's like, no. Did you feel into it? Right? Do you feel the impact of how that allowed you to perform and feel that day?
And when it's a checklist, it's more like, this is the trendy thing to do. You're on the next trend with the keto diet, the South Beach diet, the emotional intelligence work, like all these things. And that's where, I guess that's where I could see where a lot of people get turned off, because they're like, oh, I'm not going to.
It's more work.
Yeah.
You're creating more work and more stress. Something else for me to do. I can't do anymore. I'm already so stressed. My to-do list is like this. No, it has to become you, right? One of my favorite meditation teachers, his name is David G. He had this great analogy in the morning. RPM, rise, pee, meditate. Every day, non-negotiable, rise, pee, meditate. You'll rise and pee every day, right? Rise, pee, meditate. 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 20 minutes. Just create a ritual around it, and it will become you. You won't have to think twice about it.
Wow. That leads me, I just saw this comedian make a joke, and he's like, in 2020, not a real study, it's a fake study, but like, we asked 1,000 people, what is the first thing you do when you get out of bed? Right now, it's 97% of people checked their phone. 2% went and peed. 1% had to change their sheets because they peed in the bed. That's what they're saying. Then it's like in 2020, 97% of people went and peed.
Yeah.
Right? The other 3% drank some water.
Yeah.
Like I look over and like, oh, there it is. And that's because I have a bad habit where luckily I get up without an alarm, but it's my alarm or my thing, or it's there. And if the baby's crying, I check the app with him with the camera, and now I'm awake. Those lights wake me up.
Yeah.
And, I know I need to break myself of that, but it's part of that being busy, busy, busy. So if we use the acronym RPM, I really like that.
Yeah. And the busy, 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 like every time we look at our phone, part of the instigator of looking at our phone is that dopamine hit. Right. And so we're living in a society that's addicted. Just one more hit. And there's a study that was just done. If one person pulls out a phone at a dinner party or restaurant or whatever, all of a sudden, we're looking at our phones now. Great. We're all hitting that
That
dopamine
person
rush,
gave
right?
everyone else permission.
Yeah. So I think for sure, what are you giving control over your life? Social media, other people's messaging, watch the brands that you follow, the people that you follow, but also your actual device. My phone will not be turned on the first 40 minutes in the morning. It will not. Sometimes I have to take off my Oura ring because I'm so addicted. Like, how did I sleep last night? But I noticed it was just like that same rush. It's like, I'm going to get on my phone and see what's going on. But if I told you that there was one thing that you could do in this world that was going to make you show up with more peace, possibly more joy, release some serotonin, that feel-good hormone within your body, allow you to have more clarity for your purpose and for your vision, turn on a healing response within your body, and possibly open your mind up to all the possibilities that could exist in your future, and it's free, would you do it?
Yes.
Go meditate.
I'm putting it on the record. We're going to start meditating with intention
Noted.
consistently.
There you go.
But you made it easy. You just told me, go out, take a breath. I meditated, right? If I think of it as, I have to do this for 10 minutes or 15 minutes, or I have to go turn on this guided meditation and get through it, then it's super daunting. It's like impossible. And as a high achiever, high performer, perfectionist, I'm like, if I don't finish something, I'm not a quitter.
Yeah.
So then maybe I just won't start it. Because that's how we negotiate out of things.
For sure. And I think part of your instigator, like so many people, like the transcendental meditation guy that you saw, he really entered that world of like woo-woo, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, this woo idea is something that we call neuroscience today. It's validifying. It has a science that's proving that all of these ancient rituals that come from so many different cultures, they're backed by science now. We can actually monitor your brain and the response that's happening within your body by these minutes of meditation, of visualization, of yoga, of breath work, of journaling, right? But you have to figure out what's your system.
Yeah.
That transcendental meditation guy, that was not your system. Right? So that seems like a lot of work, right? Same thing with me. It was not my system. How can I modify if I do it for 3 or 4 or 5 days straight and I notice how it makes me feel and it feels good, that's the thing that you should be doing.
Yeah.
So it might take a little bit of effort and playing around. But if you want to save the money on going on the opioids, the diet or whatever it is, like this is where you have to start. Learn how to change your state and everything else will follow.
I agree. And one of the things that triggers in my head is sometimes my wife will say we get the case of the fuck it's.
Yeah.
Fuck it. Let's eat the cakes and the cookies and the
Totally.
this and the like, who cares? Like, but that's a culmination of all these things that led to this point of and it's not that it's bad to get that.
Yeah.
Because I'm also making the conscious choice of this is what we're going to do right now.
Yeah.
But also with cakes and cookies, I don't eat processed food. I get the best. I go to like Magnolia and I'm going to get the most amazing slice of cake that's super fresh. I'm not getting Chips Ahoy off the shelf. Like that's just not something I'm going to eat.
Yeah, I know. And something you made me think of too, being with our kids. So whether you have kids or not, if you look at a child on a playground, they're so in the moment, right? Nothing else matters. They are so focused on that slide or the swing or the ball, right? That's an act of stillness and meditation, right?
Ever present.
And so one of the gifts, and you're probably doing it already when you're asking about where the meditation's sneaking in, you have a 17-month-old, right? You are present in that moment with him. And where we get it wrong as parents is when we are trying to be with our children quality time, but we have 50 tabs running trying to like laugh and think about what we have to do at the same time. Be present. And if you don't have kids, when you're out for dinner, be present. Put your phone away, right? When you're talking to somebody who loves you, stop thinking about work or what you have to do. Be present in the conversation, so much so that you could repeat what they were saying back to you. That is an act of meditation because you're so in tune with the present moment, which is healing. Same thing.
I didn't even know we were going to end up on this. Like, it's the quickest, easiest way that you've explained meditation to me, because to me, it was always so daunting.
Yeah.
You know, and some of the habits I tried to do, even while we were pregnant, before my kid arrived, is like, I try to be home at 6, unless it's like some crazy work deadlines. But I'm home at 6. I don't bring work home. And I don't work on weekends unless we're out of town. Or again, some super pressing deadline, which is just for huge projects. And those are ways that I've started to create this practice, because even though now he won't know if I'm on the computer at home, but later when he's doing sports and we're doing activities and we're doing things where I have to go I have to make noise. I have to make note that I do have the time and I can create these habits for when it's going to get even crazier. You have a 7-year-old. So like, you already know that, versus my 17-month-old. He goes to bed and then I have free time. But
absolutely. Yeah, I have a 7 and a 4, and I'm going into the phase of, you know, the people with older kids with like all the classes and the scheduling of kids' activities and sports. And it's like, oh my gosh, there's more work coming. But, you know, if we look at some of the most successful people on the planet, right? This past year, I've really just dove into studying flow state, right? Anybody who says that they don't have time, they don't have the resources, right? They're too busy. They're all excuses, right? We know that with more success, with more money, more responsibility comes, and yet they can still be more productive. And so what is flow state? Flow state, again, is tapping in. It's the same brainwaves that we use when we're meditating. We are so involved in so in tune with the moment. I really love coaching my clients on, 90-minute blocks, right? 90 minutes, whatever you have to do for work, just totally own in on that aspect. Turn your phone off, notifications off. If it's on the computer, it's on the computer, whatever it is, just own in on that 90 minutes. Notice how much more productive you are than if you are not focused, taking breaks to scroll, to grab a bite, to answer an email here, a text there. The time thing really is just something we have to master. And I think that through the studies that I've seen anyway, Stephen Kotler is a great person to look into for this, is scheduling your day, right? It goes back to these rituals. Well, where did that come from? The gift of the ashram is that every single hour for every single day is accounted for. We're up at 5:30 in the morning. We go straight to meditation. Right after the meditation, we have satsang. Right after satsang, we have yoga and breath work. Right after that, we go to brunch. Right after that, we go into karma yoga and our purpose throughout the day. That same cycle gets repeated at 4:00 at night. We go into yoga and meditation. We go into satsang. We go into evening lecture. And it's like every single day is the exact same thing. And when you're living it, the repetitive nature of it, I remember just felt like torture. Leaving it, it's the number one thing that I craved, the structure, knowing that the things would just happen and flow. They were going to get done no matter what. And part of that was the scheduling of my self-care, of my self-love practices. When I optimized myself, my mind, my body, my vessel, all the work got done that day, right? So I think that we have to switch our perspective, and instead of, my God, it's so stressed, I don't have any time, I'm so overwhelmed, right? Create a structure within your life to invite more ease and more freedom. And it might take some getting used to. And, using your day timer every day might feel like more work in the beginning, but it will feel like less work and freedom in the end.
Wow. Thank you. I have some new habits I get to practice because of this. This is amazing. Thank you so much.
So amazing. So grateful to speak to you.
I have one final question for you. And I'm sure you summed it up in this whole conversation, but how do you define living a life through love?
Ultimately, living a life through love is loving yourself first. Doing something every single day, which feels like the ultimate act of self-love, so that you can then carry that through the rest of your day. And that could be coffee in the morning. Coffee for me is an act of self-love. I'll always set an intention with my coffee. And I know that for that 30 seconds of my coffee brewing, I'm just setting an intention for my day. I'm smelling the coffee brewing. My God, that smells so good. Right? It's acknowledging those little things. So celebrating your own self-love in the morning.
Little wins along the way too.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. I do want to acknowledge you for a few things. Number one, the conversation. But the most important thing, because I'm in the room with you right now and I get to share this opportunity, your energy. Like, it sounds like you're talking, the way you're holding space. So everything you're saying, the way it's landing, because your energy is on point with all that, like it lands even more for me. So I hope the listeners get to see it and hear it, whether they're watching or tuning in. But just I wanted to notice that for you.
Thank you for noticing. It's probably been one of the biggest parts of my self-growth is honoring my energy, right? The returning to my energy that I probably had as a little kid, but I turned it off growing up. So thank you for acknowledging that.
Yeah, you're welcome. It's nice and peaceful.
Thank you.
And where can everyone find you?
Yeah, so I love community. Definitely, on Instagram, it's probably my favorite platform. So at Mona Sharma, through there you'll see I have a company called Xicama also, which is a prebiotic beverage brand. But we want to put the fun and functional. So it's a brand that's really growing around, creating wellness education through a fun ingredient using Jicama. So at Xicama also, it's Xicama.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for tuning in to Live Through Love. If you love this episode, you'll love this episode.